She has done the world premiere episode of actually being on someone else's podcast. And the someone else is her name is Jamie Kern Lima.
When Jon Stewart speaks, people listen. But this time, Meghan Markle wasn't laughing. It started like any other night on The Daily Show. The audience chuckled, the lights were warm, and Jon Stewart sat comfortably behind the desk, delivering punchlines with his trademark ease. But then, everything shifted. With one sharp joke, one calculated comparison, he didn't just crack a joke.
There are growing calls to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles. The New York Post is reporting that locals in the UK say enough is enough, especially after Prince Harry's disastrous BBC interview, which aired hours after he lost his appeal for taxpayer-funded UK.
He cracked a persona. Meghan Markle, he said with a smirk, is basically a mini Brigitte Macron. Great at slapping her man into place. Laughter erupted. But underneath that humor was something far more unsettling, a cultural turning point. Because Stewart didn't pull that comparison out of nowhere. Brigitte Macron, the French First Lady decades older than President Emmanuel Macron, is often portrayed as assertive, domineering, even icy. And Jon's jab placed Meghan in that same mold, an image of control, emasculation, and dominance. It was surgical, and it hit harder than anyone expected.
And in the world premiere of podcast, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, she pulled out all the stops. Here is the intro of the episode.
This wasn't a fringe YouTuber ranting or a tabloid screaming scandal. This was Jon Stewart, the voice of progressive wit, finally saying out loud what many had been whispering for years. And that's what made it dangerous. This wasn't just a joke. It was a statement. Jon Stewart isn't known for petty drama or cheap shots. He's known for precision, for striking when something actually matters. That's why this felt different. Meghan Markle has weathered years of criticism from tabloids and conservative pundits, but she always had the left-leaning media on her side. Stewart, however, comes from that same audience, the feminists, the creatives, the socially aware progressives, her people. And now they were laughing too.
You're in America now, and we don't give a shit about you. You're not our fucking prince. You'll never be king. We hate your wife. Stay at home in your $29 million mansion, all right?
The internet exploded. Within minutes, memes surfaced of Meghan brushing off Harry's hand, edited into that famous Macron footage. Captions like "boss babes" or "bossy babes" flooded feeds. And something shifted. What once seemed like power began to look like dominance. What once looked like partnership started to feel like imbalance. And for the first time in a long time, Meghan Markle didn't seem untouchable. She seemed exposed. Behind closed doors, reports say Meghan was livid.
Malignant narcissist who cannot get enough of herself while she simultaneously plays the victim. My castle's too small. Yeah. The queen is mean to me. They won't let me call myself Her Royal Highness anymore, but I'm going to put it all over my stationery and on the gifts that I give to my friends.
Her team scrambled. The joke wasn't just dismissed as mean. It was labeled sexist, outdated, even dangerous. But the public didn't buy it. They saw something else. Satire that finally said what they had been thinking. Meghan's empowerment brand was starting to feel off. And that podcast? Confessions of a Female Founder was supposed to be her comeback moment. Instead, it was Exhibit A in the argument against her authenticity. Critics didn't just say it was boring, they said it was hollow. The episodes were soft, vague.
I just can't stand her. I just think she's such a phony.
Harry's digging an even bigger hole for himself here.
Well, I think he's dug so deep now, he'll strike water any day now.
Carefully curated monologues that said everything and nothing. No risk, no grit. Just a beautiful voice talking about vision and gratitude while avoiding anything real. Jon Stewart didn't need to be cruel. He just needed to be honest. He didn't call her names. He didn't shout. He didn't dig into conspiracy. He just pointed out that the emperor, or empress, had no clothes. And that's the kind of critique that leaves a mark. It doesn't spark outrage. It sparks realization. And when the public realizes they've been sold a fantasy, they don't scream. They laugh. Even worse, they stop caring. And then came the jab at Prince Harry, an unemployed immigrant who gave up his family, his home, and now carries his wife's handbag at charity events. That one-liner was brutal, but visual. Everyone could see it.
Prince William is reportedly formulating a plan to finally strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their HRH title.
And once a joke paints a picture that vivid, it sticks. Harry, once seen as the brave royal who walked away from tradition for love, is now being cast as a side character. In photos, he stands quietly behind Meghan. At events, she speaks. He nods. His memoir, Spare, meant to reclaim his narrative, was instead seen as a spiral of overshare, an emotional dump that raised eyebrows more than it raised empathy. And that's how satire wins. Not by exaggerating, but by reflecting what people already suspect.
Planned from the beginning. She denied being interested in the royal family, which she totally was. I know someone who knows the ex-husband who said she had a vision board with Prince Harry on it. And
Before they met?
Yes. And she wants to
That's
pretend.
impressive. You got to admit that is impressive.
Meghan's rise was dazzling. From American actress to duchess, from palace exile to global activist. She symbolized disruption, strength, voice. But it was always curated. Every photo, every word, every project had a message, a story, a strategy. And over time, people started seeing the strings. Jon Stewart didn't expose something hidden. He amplified something obvious. That Meghan Markle's image, as powerful and inspiring as it once was, is starting to feel exhausting. That podcast wasn't just poorly received, it was ridiculed. Not because people hate Meghan.
Oh my God, I can't even. These two, Meghan and Harry, are the worst.
But because it felt like branding dressed up as empowerment. Glossy lighting, shallow questions, no substance, no scars. And people can sense when authenticity is fake. Public opinion doesn't usually flip overnight. It shifts slowly, like a tide. But every now and then, a moment pushes it over the edge. Jon Stewart's joke was that moment. Not just because of what he said, but because of who he is. He made it okay to laugh at Meghan. Not in cruelty, but in relief. And that's the turning point. Meghan isn't being attacked anymore. She's being ignored. And in media, that's the worst fate of all. Once the media darling, Meghan is now facing the hardest challenge in celebrity, staying relevant. Her old tools aren't working.
She's slaughtered this weekend because there were some business cards in the back of one of her podcasts. She's still using her royal title, HRH, despite our late queen warning her against.
The victim card, overplayed. The feminist slogan, feels empty. The fairy tale, faded. Hollywood execs are pulling back. Podcast deals are ending. The audience has stopped listening. Not because of a scandal, but because of a disconnect. When every move feels calculated, when every word sounds rehearsed, the audience doesn't rage. They scroll past. The real damage wasn't the joke. It was the applause. Because that applause meant something. It meant the public was ready to stop pretending. That the narrative Meghan built of strength, vulnerability, grace, struggle was no longer believable. Or worse, no longer interesting. And that's what makes Jon Stewart's punchline historic. It didn't ruin Meghan Markle. It reminded everyone they'd already stopped believing her.